Good afternoon. I hope you're keeping well, and welcome to another edition of Careers and Coffee. I'm Kieran Buxton, your host today, and I'm an enterprise coordinator covering East Norfolk, Broadland, and West Norfolk, and I'll be hosting today's episode. Today, our guest is Robert Jones, who is an apprentice electrical engineer at Warren Services. We'll be talking about his experiences as an apprentice in the engineering industry. Before we welcome our guest, though, it'll be great to watch a short video about the apprenticeships at Warren Services.
Warren Services is proud of its training and apprentices programme. It recognises that a highly skilled pipeline of new engineers is the best way to expand its staff base.
I'm really passionate about training youngsters. We've got a very skill shortage in this country, and it's my passion to be training the people of the future.
Warren Services seeks to recruit young, committed individuals who see themselves as engineers and support staff of the future. It has been running the apprenticeship programme for over 15 years, and many of its apprentices have worked their way up through the business to senior positions. As the company grows, the need for new apprentices increases. Warren Services works closely with the local academy, West Suffolk College, and others to identify suitable young people to join their popular and well-regarded apprentice programme.
When we get candidates come in, we even get their parents involved. So we know from the beginning there's a commitment for them to be working with us.
Brilliant. So, Rob, thank you for joining us and agreeing to be a guest today on Careers and Coffee. How are you keeping?
Good, thanks. Yeah, good. In this weird time,
Good.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned briefly, you're an apprentice electrical engineer at Warren Services. So, it'd be great to hear a bit more about what your role entails, what does a typical day look like, and a bit more about Warren Services as well.
Yeah, well, my job entails a lot of different things that you wouldn't see on the surface because of the company I work for. Because at Warren Services, we do like a lot of variable different jobs as a subcontracting company. So one day I could be coming into work doing electrical fault finding work or control panel building, which is a more electrical based work. So the next day I could be moved into assembly to help them build products essentially. So yeah, working at Warren as well is, like I just said, because of that variable work, it's really quite interesting.
That's brilliant. So as you're on an apprenticeship as well, I believe that your training provider is West Suffolk College. So please tell me a bit more about how the apprenticeship training works.
Yeah, so I'm on an apprenticeship scheme currently, and how it works is that I will be doing 2 qualifications, a work-based qualification and a core qualification, as it were. So my first apprenticeship that I did at Warren Services entailed a HNC, High National Certificate, and a NVQ level 3 at Warren, which is done not really at college, it's done at Warren and at home, and you do that work separately, and that builds up the NVQ part of it, and then the HNC is done at college and is more like traditional learning like style of course. And then currently I've moved on to a higher level 1 apprenticeship scheme, and I'm doing a HND and an NVQ level 4, which is NVQ level 4 is more into management, and but it's a similar process again. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Sounds like really good progression as well, you know, staying with the same employer and putting you through level 3 and level 4. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
so obviously it's the topic of the nation at the moment and internationally. How's it been for you during COVID, and has your apprenticeship been affected?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because work, in terms of work, I haven't been furloughed or anything. I've worked throughout the whole thing, but the actual college part of it, it's been on and off due to colleges closing and reopening, and then having a limited amount of students in classes and in the building or facility itself. So that's really affected the sort of learning side of it. Luckily, I've still been able to keep progressing as such on the courses and still hitting my goals that I wanted to hit, and which is fine. And from a work point of view, like I was saying, we weren't majorly affected, apart from there was a lot of shift changes, especially when we were producing ventilator parts. When in the first lockdown, we had to produce a lot of ventilator components, and then they were assembled elsewhere. So I got involved in that as well during that part of lockdown.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Actually, okay, your apprenticeship was affected, but that's amazing work that's going on there. So credit to you for that as well. So it'd be really interesting to hear about what was your route becoming an apprentice at Warren Services, and what was the motivation and decision making behind going into an apprenticeship?
My route actually into Warren Services was through a careers tutor or advisor at my old college, UTCN. What they were doing is going around different local companies, or reasonably local companies, to Norwich, and looking into like what possible apprenticeships are out there for people that lived around here that were in engineering, of course, being an engineering college, and I was looking to get into the engineering industry. And through that, I was presented with a couple of options. I'd applied for loads across the country, but this one come up, and I got an interview, a chance for an interview, and did my interview, and they offered it the apprenticeship, and it looked like the work they did and how like the company works. Essentially, I was just like, this looks like something I'd enjoy doing. But getting into actual apprenticeships, I never actually, this is funny really, because I never actually made the dead decision to go into an apprenticeship against a university once I'd done my A-levels at all, because I was still on the cusp, on the balance of either. At the end of year 13, I actually had non-conditional offers at universities, and I had other apprenticeships, and because I just sort of threw my name out there as far as I could just to see what I'd get back, and ended up being quite a few things. But I really enjoyed the apprenticeship scheme at Warren, so I ended up choosing that. Yeah.
Brilliant, and well done for all those offers. It's a good position to be in. So we have got a question that's come through on the live chat. How many hours do you spend at work, and how many hours do you spend at college or studying?
Yeah, so during term time, I'll have 4 days at work, so 8-hour days, and then I'll have 1 day, which is a Thursday this year, at college, doing not just only my going to college, just any general college work towards the apprenticeship itself. So the actual hours would be, well, 8 times 4 for work, and then how long college takes on the Thursday.
Okay, it's brilliant. So it's about 32 hours at work, and then I guess it's going to depend on the amount of learning you need to do following that. But
obviously not during term times. I'm here 5 days a week as like a normal working week, but during term time, obviously not.
Brilliant. And do you like the balance between the work and study life?
Yeah, it took some adjusting. I'm not going to sit here and say I walked it, because I didn't. It did take some adjusting after I'd done my A-levels, because I did have a part-time job during that, but it didn't really match up to the same level as doing a higher level course alongside like actually working. So yeah, it took time to adjust to it, but I'm fine with it now, obviously.
Brilliant. I've got another question that's come through here, which is, I'm considering doing an apprenticeship, but not sure. What's some of the good things about the role?
Well, besides the obvious, so they pay for your qualifications, and you're learning whilst working, having years in the industry, and getting that useful experience that you will need to progress in the industry, plus those qualifications. You do get that, like, I don't know how to put it, almost, because you're getting used to working in the industry, you're finding it much easier to like get a job after that, after you've done your apprenticeship, if you don't want to still work at the same company you're working at, if that makes sense. So say you come out of uni and you've had no experience in the industry. Yes, you've got a degree. I'm not saying this is a bad route because I nearly took it myself. So, but say you have the degree, you're going straight into an engineering company 5 days a week and you're working solidly. That's quite a lot. That's a really big change from where you were doing full-time education straight into working. That's a massive change. Whereas this is kind of easing me into it a bit more because I'm still learning, I'm working now, and you get that balance.
That's a great overview. So we've got another question that's just come in as well. So why did you decide to take A-levels rather than going straight into an apprenticeship post GCSEs?
Genuine reason was because I wasn't sure once I'd done my GCSEs what I wanted to do, if I wanted to go to uni or wanted to take an apprenticeship on. So I thought A-levels are a 2-year buffer for me to work out what I want to do. So I took A-levels of what I was interested in, A-level maths, physics, a level 3 in engineering, and I did a EPQ. And during those 2 years, I did actually work out a lot of things what I wanted to do from that, and that really sort of helped me or focused me in the direction of engineering I wanted to get into as well. So yeah, that's an important 2 years really.
Brilliant. So another question that I've got actually, because you've spoken a bit about part-time job and you know, sort of getting into that apprenticeship. It wasn't straight into work, but it was moving you more towards a work life. Did you take up any other work experience? Was it just a part-time job? And how important do you think the work experience was getting into that apprenticeship?
Yeah, having any job before you go into an apprenticeship scheme of any sort, or any job at all really, is really handy. I'd say, in my opinion anyway. But I did work experience at Exheat and Watton for 2 weeks prior to this apprenticeship scheme, and then in year 11 to year 13 I had a job in a local job doing metal sculpturing, so casting, forging, just metalwork in general, welding, just sort of not as such engineering, more metalwork, but it definitely sort of gave me a good set of skills when I moved on to this apprenticeship, because I know I'm comfortable with myself using power tools and just general sort of metalworking, and yeah, so that was definitely useful. Yeah.
Brilliant. We've got another question that's come through here. So did you have any assumptions about what an apprenticeship would be like before you started, but then those assumptions changed once you got into the role?
Yeah, that's a good question. Assumptions I had about apprenticeships were my assumptions about apprenticeships prior to having one were based off friends of mine that were older than me that were already in apprenticeship schemes, and they've told me few bits, like nuggets of information about theirs, how theirs work and how they do it and stuff like this. And you can't really make assumptions, because after talking to them, you hear different information from different people. So I was thinking, oh, so apprenticeships are like this, apprenticeships are like that. But it depends company to company. They do it completely differently, or they could do it exactly the same. So you're having an assumption about how an apprenticeship works it's difficult to say. But as a base, my assumptions were obviously, I am going to do some sort of work with the company, and I will be doing a form of qualification on the side, not knowing what level that could be.
Okay, no, that sounds really interesting as an assumption. So if a young person was looking to go into an apprenticeship in engineering, so let's say, I don't know, they're sort of finishing GCSEs, what advice would you give to that young person?
Well, it took me some time after I'd done my GCSEs, honestly, to sort of work out what area I wanted to focus in engineering, even like down to that level of focus. Yeah, you've got to. If I was to give any like GCSE student advice towards an apprenticeship, getting one is, firstly, if you're sure you want to do one after your GCSEs, just spread your name out as far as you can to as many companies as you can. Because I did that. I applied for Bentley, Rolls-Royce, obviously Warren, British Sugar, just trying to think of companies now. There was a couple more, but that was a while ago now. Yeah, there was a couple more companies. I just, whoever had apprenticeship schemes at the time, I was applying for, and even within companies, I was applying for different roles within the different apprenticeship schemes they had. So if you're looking to get one straight after your GCSEs, just go for it. And just send your name out as far as you can. For the specific levels as well you want to get into, because obviously different apprenticeship schemes have got different levels of progression, or like max levels you can reach on that scheme. There's a lot of details you've got to read into as well, which is important. But if you're not sure at the end of your GCSEs, definitely maybe looking at college or something, doing a level 3 course of some sort to give you that buffer, because I use that. That was really important for me anyway.
Brilliant. And so obviously you went on to do A levels, which fits in as again nicely to the next live question even. Has taking A levels given you anything that now helps you at work?
My level 3 engineering, I'd say, because that was level 3 is level 2 and 3, because I did level 2 in my GCSE, and then my level 3 engineering. I got taught a lot of basic skills at UTC to do with my work, not only like paper-based work. We did a lot of machining at UTC, like working with machines and understanding it, and that had a major impact on how I was, like what I use at work now. But the more core subjects like maths and physics, the physics obviously has the electrical side to it, and you'll always be doing some form of maths in engineering at work. It may not be to the caliber or standard as an A level, because the maths you're doing at A level is not really regarded as day to day even for an engineer. But especially like when you're going on to an apprenticeship scheme after you've done those A levels really helped me progress to my HNC and my HND now, because I've got I'm doing cores in maths, in modules in maths now during my apprenticeship, like my HND and HNC, and they were super helpful, because I sort of knew a lot of it before I even was taught it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's a really good overview there, actually. Moving on to the skills element to what you do, and what skills do you use while you're at work, and what advice would you give to a young person in terms of skills to develop?
I do a surprising a lot of hand work, I guess, like as it were. So even from an electrical perspective, when you're piecing together building a control panel, or completely flip that, and you're working on a control panel that's already fitted to a machine and could be live as well, and you're trying to understand why there's a problem with it, why there's a fault, and you have to go through it with your multimeter as well. So the skills that would be good to develop for when you're doing an apprenticeship similar to mine would definitely be like general engineering hand skills, and understanding as well, like base level understanding, because my electrical obviously is quite good now, but my mechanical understanding is not the same, not as high level, but I still have a good baseline mechanical level and skill of understanding, which is, I think, is important as well, having a good round knowledge, because especially at Warren, because we end up doing anything essentially. So yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, okay, so the next question we've got come from the live chat. So you've spoken about the UTCN a few times, which stands for University Technical College for Norwich. Can you explain a bit about the difference between going to UTCN compared to going to a normal school?
Yeah, so I actually went to Wayland High School, year 7, 8, and 9, and once I'd done that, I was in year 9 and I saw the advert for the college. It was the first year the college was opening, and it was specifically in technical or engineering based qualifications. And I was in year 9 and I was like, oh, I'd like to do something like that for my GCSEs. I'm interested in stuff like that. And Wayland didn't offer it at the time. So me and my mate, who was in the same boat, sort of went, let's give it a go, just give it a whirl. And we both did. And we were there for 4 years. We did our GCSEs there and then our A-levels. And now I'm at the apprenticeship scheme. So yeah, how UTCN works is it is a lot different, I guess, compared to a normal traditional school starting at year 7 and finishing at year 11. But for me, it worked. I mean, I could see how it wouldn't work for a lot of people though, because you're leaving a lot of your friends and that you have at your high school, and then going into the UTCN and making all new ones, and then doing your GCSEs. It is quite a lot of ones, but I enjoyed it, definitely.
Well done. It seems like it certainly helped you advance in your career. So that's great news. Are there any misconceptions about being an engineer?
Oh, well, misconceptions. Well, not quite an engineer status yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I'm an apprentice still. Let's not. But misconceptions about engineers. A lot of the time, we're all sort of, people assume that we're very focused in like specific jobs. I've noticed the few years I've been in the industry, like certain engineers, even I would make assumptions. I'd be like, oh, he's an electronics engineer, so he wouldn't know anything about, I don't know, how an engine works. And surprise, surprise, every time I've been sort of blown away by the fact that engineers sort of, if they say, oh, I'm a controls engineer or something like that, if they've been in the industry for a long, especially like my manager, it's a good example, his mechanical knowledge is like beyond belief, even for someone that's not based in that industry. So a misconception is we're not, even though it seems like we're focused, is a lot of the time is, especially experienced engineers, you see that a lot of them are just knowing in all aspects, really.
Brilliant. That's a great answer. I must admit, I found it hard to think of a misconception, so you did really well on that one.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about skills that you require in the workplace, but what are the skills that you require for your apprenticeship training? Yeah, that's
actually more on the flip side, really, of what I do at work. So I'm quite hands-on at work, but when I go to college, I have to be able to write essays and write reports to specific word counts, be able to reference all these reports correctly. And it is a lot, because my course is slowly moving towards degree level, and you can sort of see how it's like changed from me doing my A-levels, my level 3, to all the way up to now, how it's sort of changing. It's more self-learning as such, more a degree style of course. So the skills that you'd need to do like this sort of course or apprenticeship scheme, the courses on this apprenticeship scheme, should I say, definitely like leaning more towards a degree standard or level or style of work.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got another question that's come through here, and I know you touched on this earlier when you mentioned that you found Warren Services through your school. But what other exposure did you have to employers while you were still at the UTCN?
UTCN, that's a good example. I wouldn't be surprised the person that asked this question is from UTCN, but because we had a lot of career, employer exposure at UTCN, way more than you'd have at any normal school, definitely, because they'd actually come in and hands-on and we'd used to like have like tutorial classes where an employer may come in and set a little problem. Obviously, it has no real world implications, but this problem, depending on your ability to solve it, would kind of make you stand out in front of them as a possible candidate for an apprenticeship or job in the future. So the exposure we had at UTCN with employers was it was brilliant, basically. And that's half the reason. Like, I met Will and Richard, the owners and the owner's son of this company, before I'd even got the apprenticeship scheme, because they come into UTCN and explained about the company itself. So it was really good at UTCN. Yeah, the exposure. Yeah.
Brilliant. And just quickly on the flip side then, how did you find the engagement with employers at Wayland Academy? I know you were year 7, 8, so it's a bit different. But...
Yeah, obviously at that age is less of it anyway, but it was still present, but most of it wasn't in the industry I wanted to get into. Even at that age, I knew roughly I wanted to do engineering, so I was, from a young age, I liked playing with cars and stuff like that. So I knew that I wanted to get into that industry, and Wayland just didn't have it. It just didn't have the courses. It just didn't have the career advice for something like that. So I just sort of sought out myself and saw this advert in the library at Wayland, and I was like, oh, there we go. We'll go with that.
Brilliant. I know that obviously actually, I'll move on to this one first. Sorry, I didn't see this question come through. You were studying to degree levels. If you have any friends taking degrees, what differences have you noticed?
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends doing their degrees, and obviously they're coming up to their last year now, and their engineering degrees as well. And the main difference is mine takes a lot longer because it's part-time, but they're rattling through their courses a lot quicker, but their courses are actually costing them money in debt, and to take them. And I'm not saying that's a bad way of doing it. I'd do it in a heartbeat if I didn't find a good apprenticeship. So, but the difference is I've definitely noticed is the progression in knowledge. My progression's like slower in technical terms and in education terms, obviously, because they're rattling through the course quicker. But I reckon comparatively in industry terms, my knowledge would be greater, just purely because of the fact I've been in the industry for longer. But then again, it's all relative to what industry and engineering you get into, because there's so many nowadays.
No, that's a good overview. Thanks, Rob. Another question I've got for you. I know it's quite early into your journey, but what have been some of the highs and lows of your career so far?
I mean, some of the best stuff we've done at Warren basically was I got the opportunity to go to Germany and fit and install a machine that we work on at Warren, and I might have future opportunities to do so as well, to do more in different countries. And that was a highlight for me, definitely, because it was just different, like completely different. Have to fly somewhere to go to work. It was a highlight for me because it's different. I like different, so keeps me on my toes.
And have you had any lows so far? I know it's quite a short career, but it'll be quite interesting to hear about that as well.
I mean, I wouldn't class anything as like a proper low, as it were. I've definitely had my own struggles at work, like the learning curve, especially at the start. When you get into the industry, it's hard. It's not easy. I didn't find it easy anyway, but I probably class that as the lowest. But at the same time, it's needed, if that makes sense. Like I say it like a negative, but I feel like to progress properly and to do well in the industry, you kind of need to just get stuck into it, basically. Yeah.
Brilliant. So I know we're getting close to the end. I've just got a final couple of questions. The first one being, what is your aspirations for the future?
I mean, I haven't put much thought into it, bar education. I would quite like to have completed my degree in electrical engineering. Definitely, that's one point I'd like to do. But aspirations terms, I mean, and I would like to definitely go abroad more for work, like I've done recently with Germany. I'd like to do that more. That was a really good experience. So at the minute, that's kind of all I'm really thinking.
That's great, brilliant. And
Yeah.
my final question I'll ask, which we always ask, what do you love about living and working in Norfolk and Suffolk?
Well, living, I just like living in the countryside. I've grown up in the countryside. I live in Norfolk and I work in Norfolk. So I've always loved being in the countryside and working in the countryside. It's funny because I don't feel like I am working in the countryside because I work in Thetford and I work in a big industrial firm on an industrial estate and a big engineering firm. And you don't get that sense of like how my first job was, where I was working for the sculpturers in the countryside, kind of very small, 4 people. You don't really get that feeling the same at a bigger engineering firm until it takes you half an hour to drive home because you live in Norfolk or Suffolk. But I'd take that in a heartbeat. I love working in Norfolk and Suffolk, definitely.
That's brilliant. That's all the questions today. So thank you so much for joining us today, Rob. It's been really interesting and really insightful to hear from you. And I think it's been great, obviously being an apprentice, really close in age to those that are completing GCSEs and A level. So it's been brilliant to hear about your experiences as an apprentice in the engineering industry. So I'll see you soon, Rob, and thank you again.
No, cheers. See you, Kieran.
Well, that's all for the interview today. Thank you, firstly, to Gcse Finch for making this all come together behind the scenes. She's been putting some brilliant videos up, putting the websites up, and just being amazing and there on hand in case anything goes wrong. Thank you again to Rob for joining us as a guest. Very inspiring and very relatable to a lot of young people watching this. So massive thank you. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for watching as well, because that's what makes this show keep running. To help us continually improve, please, fill out the survey. The link is in the description, as your views really matter to us. So just before we go, we're going to watch a video about Warren Services and their business. So it'd be really interesting for you to stick around and watch that. But don't forget to join us on Thursday, where it'll be Jordan and Josie, and they'll be inviting Lois Cordelia. I really apologise if I pronounced that wrong, about talking about unconventional career paths in arts. So here's a video to round off. Stay safe and see you soon.
Warren Services is quite literally at the cutting edge of manufacturing technology. From a small partnership developed in 1989, the company has spent over 20 years evolving its business and building an enterprise of unrivaled engineering with diverse capabilities and exacting quality standards. The technology utilised, combined with the skill and expertise of over 80 staff across 3 sites in Thetford, Norfolk, puts it at the forefront of high-quality precision engineering services. As a BSI-certified ISO 9001 company, quality management is central to its operational process, ensuring that whatever the project, Warren Services delivers manufacturing excellence 24/7, 365 days a year. State-of-the-art machinery is backed up by the very latest in software packages, enabling Warren Services to work to tight deadlines and accurately determine the production times for a wide spectrum of clients across the globe.
We're dealing with customers where they're worldwide, and sometimes they need something in Singapore and they want it in, this could be on a Friday and they want it in Singapore on a Wednesday. It can be a quite complex component. Because of all the machinery we've got here, we can actually get a DXF over the weekend. We could be producing those components on a Monday, They can be laser cut, they can be fabricated, they can be machined and shop blasted, and we can have it down at Stansted Airport on a Tuesday night, and it will be in Singapore on a Wednesday.
The diversity of the high-tech equipment on site at the factory means that nearly all machining and processes are carried out in-house. From high-precision water jetting to laser cutting and folding, CNC milling and turning, fabrication and welding, shop blasting and painting. Mechanical and electrical assembly, along with final testing, completes the end-to-end quality manufacturing service provided to an ever-increasing client base. Warren Services manufactures quality components and working parts, supplying high-end clients in volume. Manufacturing to individual artists or entrepreneurs' requirements in various industries, including automotive, oil and gas, heating and ventilation, baggage handling, theatre and many others.
We make all sorts of metal plastic products. We supply parts for the automotive industry, sort of specialist vehicles. One of which, in terms of specialist projects, again, is Johnson Sweepers. We've recently won a contract with them for 165 sets of components, which actually uses all our processes, which is one of our key selling points of the business. We have got all these processes available.
Warren Services can handle orders like the creation of the internal skeleton and workings of the iconic Man, the giant robot that graced the stage of the Take That Progress tour and is now the main image on the tour's album cover.
We work for a company called Stage Technologies, and the products that we manufacture for them and assemble and test is shipped all over the world to all stage theatres, and it has developed from us making one unique component for them, and over a period of time our relationship has built up so much so that we now are trusted with their whole complete set assembly.
Customers and manufacturing quality are central to the Warren Services ethos, but it also understands the need and responsibility to protect the environment. Waste from the manufacturing process is kept to an absolute minimum, and anything left over, where possible, is recycled and put back into the supply chain. Whilst technology is key to the company's success, so too is its investment in people. Warren Services takes pride in its employees, giving them the support they need to develop their careers within the company.
I'm really passionate about training youngsters. We've got a very skill shortage in this country, and it's my passion to be training the people of the future.
As a leading employer in the region, Warren Services prides itself in giving staff every opportunity to acquire highly valued skills and develop their careers.
Well, I've been here at Warren for about a year and a half now. I came here straight from school, but while I was still at school I was doing a young apprenticeship. So I was going to college, coming here one day a week and going to school as well. And from then really I realised I wanted to do an apprenticeship and get hands-on learning.
We've got one of the most diversified factories in Europe. I don't believe there's anybody else who does the whole range of what we do. All of us are passionate about what we're doing in engineering, and I think that passion shows through the commitment we've got to our customers.
For more detailed information about Warren Services plant, machinery and processes, click on the relevant